A warm welcome and thank you for joining us for this particular bulletin. My name is RONAH. NAHABWE. With Winnie, we use Anaka, which in the sign language interpretation. Before we head into our bulletin, let's look at what made the headlines.
In business today, Parliamentary Committee tosses 31.9 billion supplementary budget from Health Ministry. Priorities presented deemed unworthy. Fishing ban on Lake Kayumba and Chahafi in Kisoro have been lifted as USA Resilience Project clears area for use. Uganda's poor road infrastructure sways business and profits. Transport expenses eventually slapped on commodity prices.
For our first story tonight, let's look at how the supplementary budget was tossed. Now, Parliamentary Health Committee has rejected 31.9 billion shillings supplementary budget from the Ministry of Health, citing unclear explanations for the selection of specific unfunded activities, such as allowances, leaving out the most relevant. Samla Hanifa was this, and let's have the report.
Questions have dominated the supplementary budget presented to Parliament by the Health Ministry, eventually prompted rejection. Priority financing has been fenced around activities such as outstanding staff allowances during prime COVID-19, valued at 8.1 billion shillings, court reparations award to Sino Africa Medicine at 11.5 billion shillings, supervision of International Specialized Hospital Ruvoa at 2.7 billion, among other quotations. This has been unwelcome to the Health Committee that ultimately tossed the budget.
Why did you make it a priority? Supervision of Ruvoa, which is not where nothing is taking place. Why? Sincerely, you need to furnish us with the status about of Ruvoa super specialized hospital. You need to tell us what has changed. You need to tell us why it is the priority of Ministry of Health and the government of Uganda. Supervision of Ruvoa super specialized hospital. Now, oxygen plants. I see this company called Silverbacks, and you know the owner. Don't you know it? Don't you know the owners of Silverbacks? Should I tell you? The owners of... Now, yes, Silverbacks is the one that supplied us junk oxygen machines.
According to legislators, the criteria through which the ministry selected the above activities is questionable, as infrastructure was left out, citing facilities such as Mulago Hospital being non-priority compared to Lugoa Specialized Hospital, where access has been denied until now.
Now, the issue of Lugoa, I think that one, for me, Lugoa is, I think, brain dead. We just have to plug off, switch off the life support, Honorable Minister, and we escort it to the mortuary. In my opinion, as chairman of the Health Committee, can we, it's the vegetative state.
Whenever the community outside hears anything concerning Luvoa Specialized Hospital, it really becomes very hot out there. I really wonder what the 2.7 billion is going to be used for. If the activity that has come out is just supervision, not doing anything, someone would wonder how much supervision is happening without having anything to do with construction.
He wants to use 2.7 when he can't even, entering he needs to seek for permission. How many permissions would you have thought later on to utilize 2.7? But also, I think it is important that you furnish us with the status report of Ruvoa, because I don't know, through you chair at the committee, whether we have any status report of Ruvoa later on to be convinced that.
In her defense, the Health Minister, Honorable Ruth Achenj, denied participating in the selection of the above activities and passing on the liability to Ministry of Finance despite initial priority to Mulago Hospital.
And Finance picked out these 5. In our request, Mulago was number 1. Then we had Busolwe, then COVID, the court award, oxygen plants, supervision, and areas for INRA. And finance ticked those 5.
Lubowa Specialized Hospital has been an unresolved case of bad closed contracting, corruption involving government and Italian firm Finassi, among others, believed to cost 16 times more than normal. Jane Ruth Achen says the project was approved by Parliament and the Ministry's job is simply implementation. She adds that the 2.7 billion shillings for supervision is a fair amount, judging by the usual market expenses.
The Lubowa Hospital project was a project approved by Parliament. The Ministry of Health is only an implementer. Ministry of Finance is the financer. So for me, I can only implement, and I await for recommendations from you people on how to move forward.
The committee has also demanded that the ministry provides a list of all unpaid COVID-19 and Ebola medical workers.
You are now talking about areas for people who worked in COVID time. I want to bring it to your attention once again. I remember the human resource manager, good enough, was also in Mubende at the time of declaring Mubende and the whole country free of Ebola. There are also some people, actually the hygienists that worked in the Ebola time in Mubende Regional Referral Hospital, and some burial teams that did not get paid.
The committee further advised the ministry to come back tomorrow with a clear supplementary budget supported by relevant documents. Samlanifa, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
Away from that, let's look at how residents are protesting over costly mortgages in Mombasa. Buxton residents in Mombasa County have protested eviction and tasked government to implement the National Urban Renewal Project. Adoption of the low-cost housing concept has been evoked as the coastal city takes on a 19 billion Kenyan shillings project, availing 6,800 units that will be ready of occupancy by June this year.
Kenya has continued to push Uhuru Kenyatta's mega housing program to address urban housing challenges, with projects in major cities such as Nairobi and Mombasa, although still threatened by public improvement. In Buxton, a group of former residents have protested what they call unlawful eviction just 2 years after being moved from their homes for construction of the Buxton housing project. According to the group's advocate, Munira Ali Omal, the Buxton public land was unlawfully leased to Buxton Point Apartments Limited for personal gain rather than the public good.
The infamous Buxton project has been lauded as a great success, but has brought nothing but misery and suffering to the 520 former tenants who were evicted and poorly compensated. The government chose eviction over a comprehensive resettlement plan. It chose tokenism over proper consultations and negotiations. Instead of offering social rental housing and tenant purchase scheme, the government preferred home ownership, a choice which is at odds with the low standard of living of the majority of people of Mombasa.
The project, which started 2 years ago in May, involved relocation of existing tenants and demolition of old housing units for new ones. Residents say that it was groomed for absolute profits, with a private investor equity at 90% compared to that of the government at 10%. The 185 houses are believed to essentially provide affordable housing to low-income earners, a negligible figure considering that 61% of Mombasa's population lives in informal settlements.
We hereby demand that the county government of Mombasa cease and desist from further interference in the remaining old estates of Mombasa sitting on public land until the urban renewal and redevelopment project is revisited with the aim of serving public interest and not the interest of a few individuals.
Mombasa County Governor Abdul Swamad Sharif Nasil has promised to defend the evicted residents. He further requested the Mombasa County Parliament to expedite investigation into the conflict.
And in the process of being proactive, we will try as much as possible. The thing that I have also cautioned the petitioners is that it is not good practice to petition something in court and the same issue is petitioned in the Senate or the National Assembly. So they also will seek legal advice on how they're going to go katika masala hayo.
With a global urban population expected to shoot past 50% in 2025, Kenyans continue to demand for affordable housing plans across cities such as Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, among others. Phase 1 of the project is expected to be complete by next year, and houses will be sold at 200,000 Kenyan shillings at discount as per prevailing market value. Naomi Mtumba, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
President Yoweri Museveni recently hosted Qatar's Foreign Affairs Minister, Dr. Mohammed bin Abdelaziz. In a special message from Qatar, the existing bilateral relationship is to be pushed further to achieve growth in trade and investment.
According to the United Nations Comtrade database, bilateral trade between Uganda and Qatar has grown steadily in the recent years. In 2020, for instance, Uganda exported goods worth $21.6 million, 17% more from the previous year, majority from agriculture. Meanwhile, Qatar's exports to Uganda amounted to $3.3 million, a 32% decrease, exporting mainly petroleum and related products.
What we need is a new ideology, ideology of patriotism rather than sectarianism, and then solving these short-term issues. So I think the Amir should. It's good that he has contacted us, but my advice is that he should support the East African process. The president of Burundi is now there. His Excellency Kenyatta is there. For us, we are supporting them. And there is no way we can fail to solve this problem, because we have the capacity.
Qatar's investment in Uganda has been noted mainly in infrastructure. In 2019, Qatar Investment Authority, the country's sovereign wealth fund, acquired a 49% stake in Uganda's largest power distributor, Umeme, for $200,000 million. Such is expected to improve the investment portfolio and boost economic growth.
Your valuable advice today is highly appreciated, Mr. President. And we agree with you that Qatar's strong support to the East African Committee is very essential under the African Union, and we have raised this issue to the African Unions themselves, that Qatar will never create a separate another track, but to support the actual process that has been signed either in Nairobi or in Luanda.
Going forward, there is a significant potential for growth in trade and investment between the two countries. Uganda's multi-production model with a strong agricultural backing and Qatar's strong economy and financial resources present opportunities for mutual benefit. Martha Nimsima, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
Away from that, let's look at how loose loads sway turnover. Uganda's poor road infrastructure has been linked to the drop in business growth and turnover. The flow of logistics across East Africa has been affected by the sloppy network, inciting maintenance mechanisms such as levies and penalties that have been translated into expenses.
It has been noted that transportation is essential, but the poor road condition has significantly impacted on cargo movement in the country and around East Africa. Government efforts to improve the road network have been slow, which has led to high transport costs, delays and loss of revenue for businesses and traders. In spite of the Uganda National Roads Authority efforts to develop these roads, the selection criteria for road development, construction and maintenance has not been very effective. Road development is based on the internal rate of return, which is not easy across all districts in the country.
Standard of logistics is $1 per kilometer, but on the northern corridor we are having $2.5 in import and $2.15 in export, which is very expensive. So one of the causes of the expense is the poor road network.
According to the UNRA media manager, Mr. Alan Sempewa, goods that heavily rely on road transport have not been able to reach their intended markets in time due to the poor nature of roads. He noted that government has invested in the construction of new roads, the rehabilitation of existing ones, and the expansion of the country's transport network.
And we know that when you actually improve roads, you improve on travel times, people travel to their destinations very quickly and get there on time, but also business is able to grow.
CEO Maritime Cargo has observed that transportation of goods across the country takes longer than expected, leading to delays and additional costs, which has also made it difficult for traders to expand their businesses or reach new markets. Efforts have been made by the government to maintain some of the spoiled roads, especially those at Uganda's border.
Logistics as a whole, it is one of the most expensive parts that we have. And in Uganda, it contributes about 35 to 40% of the final price of the final shelf price of every product. And if you look at logistics as a whole, the most component that provides the budget of logistics is transport. Because of the poor road network, you realize that most of the food stuffs that we are producing in Uganda are going to waste. If you look at the matoke supply chain, what we call the banana supply chain, if you look at the maize supply chain, 30% of all that produce goes to waste because the road networks are.
Although the government has made efforts to improve road infrastructure, much more needs to be done to address the challenges faced by businesses and traders. Improving road infrastructure is essential to support economic growth and provide better opportunities for businesses and traders in Uganda. Brenya Katsime, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
Now the fishing ban has been lifted in Kisoro. Residents of Kisoro district can now wear a smile on their faces after fishing activities that had been halted for 2 years on the Lake Kayumba and Chahafi have been cleared. Suspension followed the implementation of the Resilience Project, Integrated Community Agriculture, and the Nutrition Activity Project by USAID. Yeah.
Abel Bizimana, the Kisoro District LC5 chairman, has lauded the Integrated Community Agriculture and Nutrition Activity Project ICAN, a resilience project funded by USAID covering Chigezi, Acholi and Karamoja sub-regions since 2018. He appeals to residents living near Lake Kayumba and Chahafi to employ good farming methods in order to conserve and develop the fishing industry that has been boosted by over 1,000 species introduced.
We have seen some results, especially what we can witness today about the fish stock in these two lakes of Chahafi and Kayumbo. I'm encouraging people who are having gardens on the hills surrounding this lake. I'm aware there are 9 villages. These villages must practice good agriculture so that we don't see silting that will choke the lake, will cause a lot of damage, and then we lose the stock of fish we have stocked with government.
Kisoro District Speaker Mr. Amos Hakizimana called upon residents to protect the 2 lakes representing their main source of livelihood, adding that the area will be conserved for fish and tourism industries. Hakizimana also revealed that Kisoro District local government will try to create fish ponds to conserve other fish species to be introduced.
I thank the chairman and the ICAN for the proposal of involving this fishing site into tourism. This we are blessed to have these features, and with tourism, our people would exactly benefit from it. That is to say, to earn a living and some income for themselves.
District Vice Chairperson Mr. Agustin Bariaroha noted that insecurity in the area has gravely affected fishing. Overcultivation has minimized the fishing farming space as cultivators reach buffer zones, leaving no space for fish to feed. He, however, noted that lack of standard fishing boats among residents.
There has been lots of insecurities in this area. People are fighting each other every now and again. There is also a problem of lack of boats that made it difficult to cross over to the island.
Clearing fishing activities in the area has been a long overdue moment in the course of implementing of the Resilience Project expected to end in July this year across the respective sub-regions. Masikatsime, Nobat Yamhachi for Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
Business Today will now take a short commercial break, but don't go away because we will return with more.
2024. Driving Business.
The taste of Uganda in a new international park.
He must be rich, tall, handsome, from a respectable family. He must have a maid because at our home we do not work.
Conductor Masao.
What? Obadde olobye ku simu?
Yamunange anti yo TV enkolera.
Nyumira omulembe omupya ogujjudde ebisanyusa omuli emikutu gya TV egisukka mu 8 n'egya radio nga kwotadde ne zifirimu ng'osinziirira wonna w'oli. Genda mu App Store oteeke app ya YoTV channels ku simu yo olwo onyumirwe ennaku 3 ng'olabira bwereere ewatali kozesa data.
YoTV channels.
Don't miss on Smart 24 TV.
Cattle are domesticated farm animals that are reared, bred, sheltered, and cared for their meat, milk, hides, or draft purposes. Starting a livestock farm depends on the capital you intend to invest and having wide knowledge on the best practices. Every pasture accounts. How they grow, germinate, and how we finally come up with silage and hay. This week in Farm Smart, together with Mr. Businje, we'll be looking at cattle keeping, mechanization, and pasture growing.
Smart 24, driving business.
You're welcome back from that short commercial break, and thank you for sticking with us. Now let's look at how Afro-Arab Youth Council and Morocco unite to empower youth. In a move to strengthen economic ties between Africa and Arab nations, a development partnership between the Afro-Arab Youth Council and the Moroccan government for the youth being exploited is being put in place, and let's have the details.
The Afro-Arab Youth Council has continued to push the Arab League legacy on economic growth and empowerment, as illustrated by the former and fallen leader Colonel Muammar Gaddafi. The partnership with Morocco, announced during the African Arab Summit in Marrakech, will focus on promoting trade and investment between two regions and involved parties such as Uganda, whose surging youth unemployment will be partly addressed as agriculture, energy and infrastructure projects emerge.
Union, because there is a war. There is a war we're waging, but it's not a war, I mean, the conventional war. It's a war against poverty. It's a war for development opportunities for developing our countries. I think I will
participate in the 19th anniversary of IIYC. I'm glad to be here today, and what I can retain from this conference and this dialogue, that as African countries can share a lot with each other's best practices, quick wins, especially in youth policy. Uganda has a really good policy in this sector. Morocco.
Involved institutions such as Kampala International University expressed readiness to utilize funding and development provisions such as scholarships that will emerge from this partnership.
Exploited. So as a university, we are glad because we host so many students from different countries in Africa and also members of staff. We think this dialogue is going to be a very good starting point for networking, for enhancing student-staff exchanges, for establishing collaborations between the Arab, the Africa-Arab region and also the other parts of Africa.
The public should know is that Morocco is a deep-seated member and supporter of the Afro-Arab Youth Council, and they have some big role they are going to play at the construction of the headquarters. I don't want to release it now, let it come from their government, but we are aware that there's some work being done and they have consented on some projects. Today, I asked them about the possibility of having scholarly work, scholarship and exchanges for young people. Between them and the university, something is going to be worked out, but also between them and AY.
Anticipation of benefits from current developments is immeasurable among the potential youth beneficiaries.
Will not surely go back the same. We have had much from whatever they are saying. And one is they have ensured availability of these programs, and some of us are not in touch with the programs and whatever, but they have tried to show us how impactful they have been in other societies with other people, and how if we try to reach them, we can get them, and if we get them, they can change our lives.
RONAH NAHABWE, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
Away from that, let's look at a report about access to loans. Women entrepreneurs have urged financial institutions to refrain from restrictive conditions of obtaining financing. They claim this will help women in small businesses thrive and eventually lay ground to honor eventful moments such as Women International Women's Day, and this happened yesterday.
Women access to finance has been hindered by many conditions, from restrictive collateral security, business turnover to labor capacity, among others. As an important means to pursue growth opportunities, addressing women entrepreneurs' specific needs in accessing finance must be part of the development agenda. But as they continue celebrating Women's Day, female entrepreneurs continue to lament the inability to get loans due to stringent criteria by financial institutions.
That small business that is just starting, don't ask me for things that I can't even have right now because I'm just starting my business. So I would say partnerships and looking at innovative ways, whether it is in-house or working with a tech company, that make it very easy for women to access financial products is really something that financial institutions need to look in. There are some that are already doing it.
We're going to do away with the narrative that women own small businesses. It's time for women to actually own businesses that cross borders and, be CEOs.
Women believe that most financial systems have been designed by and for men. Therefore, when a person requires a business or a personal loan, the lender asks for collateral such as land and house. In many cultures, it is men who traditionally own land or a house, which immediately excludes women.
I think that that truly is a very challenging thing, because truth is when you're starting you have no money. Even I didn't have money at that point, quite frankly. And the banks, you can't really blame the banks because they need to know, they've also faced their own challenges in that space. But there's also a lot of other, okay, not a lot, but a couple of other banks that I have known about that have had certain programs running, different circles that have actually come up and have certain programs running where they're able to actually give money to someone without having to have this land and whatever. You might need, guarantees and stuff like that, which you should have, but without the heavy stuff, because you need land, you need to have property, you need to have these things. Like some of these things, we don't have them as we're starting. We truly don't have them.
It was created. A lot of women have amazing ideas, but accessing funding is one of the hindrances for that. A lot of the financing institutions ask for collateral, like land titles, logbooks, and very many women don't actually own these things.
Financial institutions have in turn been urged to think outside the box and use other methods to credit check individuals, such as issuing loans based on cash flows, savings group history, and money transfer and transaction history, or track a record of enterprise performance.
Women in business, beyond farming, in creatives, in any businesses, have found it very hard to access finance. And one of the reasons is the conventional way that we access finance currently. If I'm a woman and I have property, I co-own it with my husband. For me to take it as collateral, I have to go through a process of agreeing with my family.
According to data from World Economic Forum, Uganda's female entrepreneurship labor force participation rate is high compared to other sub-Saharan countries, but it has been falling since 2012, especially among the young urban women. Even with the available initiatives like the Uganda Women Entrepreneurship Program that ensures improving access to financial services, they are segregative, for they target different categories of women like vulnerable groups such as single young mothers, widows, gender-based violence survivors, women with disabilities, and those living with HIV. Pedson Mumbere, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
Moving on, the World Bank has set aside its energy investment portfolio to include deployment of 3,000 mini-grids by 2029. This is to bring electricity to more than 13 million people